Perspective Shift is brought to you by fdailycoaching.com. If you're seeking assistance to help navigate you through a difficult time or feel challenged to reach your full potential, Frank Daly can guide you to a perspective that will allow you to utilize your imagination and experience a more fulfilling and satisfying life. Frank has been working with people for over 20 years as a coach, helping them understand the power they have to transform their lives.
Damn. Mike, how's it going?
Good, Frank. Right. Welcome back to Perspective Shift. How are we doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for welcoming me back to Perspective Shift.
It's always great to see you.
I need a good shift in perspective.
I really do. Always great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for today's episode. Who are we diving into today?
Emile Coue.
Emile Coue, or Coue. We've heard it pronounced a few different ways.
Yeah, I think the French go Coue.
We'll see. I'm trying to think. I've heard it pronounced two different ways, but we'll go with Coue or Coue.
Coue. Yeah.
So this was actually a special request from one of our listeners. So shout out to whoever wrote in regards to this. We'll leave your name out of it, but thank you so much. This was an eye-opening last week listening to this material, at least for me. I had never heard of Emile. And so diving into this material was super cool over the last week.
Yeah, and obviously, as we go further into this conversation, he's talking about autosuggestion. That's kind of brought up.
Yep.
Like I say, he's from France, and he came over to the United States roughly. Yep. When did he come over?
The early 1900s. So he was born in 1857, and then he died in 1926. But he came over, he was speaking in New York, Chicago, all over, and that was the early 1900s.
Yeah, and
early 1920s.
And we literally live by autosuggestion. Obviously, when we're growing up, we remain in, especially when we're young, we're in this, like what they call a theta state in the brainwaves. And so everything that's said to us, it's suggested. So we buy into and believe into stuff. But as we get older, we can actually distinguish, or discern, I should say, which suggestions we want to hold on to and what we let go of. So we actually live by autosuggestion. What he brings in, Emile brings into it, is the consciousness of it. So when you're conscious of it, you'll that's where affirmations come from. So even though this has been around since beginning of time, right? Pythagoras and Aristotle have done this. Obviously, Jesus came along and gave word to people to live by, and that's autosuggestion as well. But when he came around, it was kind of forgotten. And,
I can't stress enough that like what you just said, our entire lives, our entire experience, what we call reality, can be summed up to autosuggestion.
Yeah, Karen does it to me every night when I'm sleeping.
She likes to keep you on your toes.
Asleep. Yeah. Well, she's like, is this like
tomorrow? I love that you take out the trash.
All of a sudden, I want to wake up and make her breakfast, and I'm like, why? I'm like, I have a real urge to do that, and it works.
But seriously, we our entire lives, everything we're experiencing, every interaction that we're having in some capacity was, developed from an autosuggestion. I do like this, I don't like this, I'm going to like this. Today's a good day, today's a bad day. It's Friday, it's the weekend, it's Monday. Oh my God. This is all autosuggestion, all of it.
Yeah, your inner voice is your constant autosuggestion. So becoming conscious of how it's speaking to you, you can shift it and change it. And then you'll change the outside world, so to speak, or you change how you experience the outside world.
Yeah.
So he brings it into a more conscious state, and he gives he's written books on it. There's not a lot of content out there. I don't know if there's any of him speaking.
That's true. We could not find any of actual audio from him. I mean, shit, it was 1857. I don't think YouTube was out around then.
No, it wasn't. But people like obviously Neville Goddard.
No, exactly.
But he had he recording, and like the gentleman we did last week,
Krishnamurti.
Like
that he guy, had a lot of content.
Yeah, he was born obviously. He was old, born later than him, but he had a lot of recording. So, but for some reason, Emile doesn't have a lot. But nonetheless, his ideas permeate and echo throughout history, through the ages, and all the greats used it. He just, I think, in the early 20th century, when a lot of people grabbing onto this, like the Carnegies and like Neville Goddard and stuff like that.
The Beatles.
Yeah, like Neville Goddard actually used the Bible for autosuggestion. That's really what it is. When you say something powerful that we all believe in, you kind of nod your head and you start to live by that. All of a sudden, you start to see your life change in dramatic ways because the other way, it wasn't working.
When I was researching, Emile, one of the cool things, I found this Washington Post article that was talking about, 100 years ago, this man changed the world, in bringing autosuggestion, to the population. It was kind of one of those clickbait type of headlines, but I thought it was cool that I found it in a larger, more recognized publication. But it was cool because he talked about, in the article, it talked about just how many people he influenced, and I thought it was crazy that the Beatles were drawn to him, and I thought that was great because the Beatles had their own different guru. They were experimenting and experiencing their consciousness, and so to see that Emile, was able to influence somebody like that too, or a group of gentlemen like that, I thought that was interesting. One thing that we should definitely touch on is everything that I read and everything that I saw that came up. He had this this phrase, it was a very simple mantra phrase, etc., that he encouraged, and he encouraged it to be said, 20 times a day in the morning, right when you first get up, you're in that theta state, you're waking up, same thing right before you fall asleep. Just like, countless teachers talk about, this is when the subconscious is wide open, right before bed and right when you first get up in the morning. And so that phrase that he talks about is, every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. Every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. And the cool part about this phrase is it can be used towards anything, whether that's health, whether that's monetary gain, whether that's a relationship, etc. He stresses that the subconscious knows what it needs to do, will create from it, and we don't need to impose our will onto anything by being very specific, or this exact thing must happen, or it must shake out exactly this way. He's like, the subconscious knows what needs to be taken care of. We don't need to impose our will on it. In fact, one of the things that he stresses that willpower is actually the biggest obstacle to manifestation or, achieving your goals. And I thought that was so cool, because that really rang true for me. Like personally, I felt like, when I first started to understand and learn these concepts, I was using a lot of my willpower. And it was as I, didn't try to force things as much, and as I, let go more, it was in that I really obtained my power.
Yeah, because actually when you're using willpower, it's past or
force.
Yeah. Well, what it is you're just reiterating what you already know. So it doesn't, you can't, so based on his statement, every day in every way, I'll become better and better. Yeah. Well, better and better, or greater and greater, however you want to look at it. If you force upon will from the day before, you're actually trying to replicate what you did the day before, because you don't know the newness of something through will. Because I want this. I'm like, how do you know you want this? Oh, because I've had it. So now you're trying to replicate that and kind of do the revolving door aspect. And after the first turn, it's fun. After the third and fourth, my God, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So when you let go and just let the subconscious bring into your higher mind, however you want to look at it, bring into you what it is you need to go experience. And then you start to see the synchronicity of the world, which is brilliant. But by keeping like this phrase in the back of your head, and every day, in every way, my life will become better and better, or greater and greater, however you want to put it. All of a sudden, that holds a higher vibration for the individual. And when that happens at the higher vibration, new things, synchronicities come in, and then you act on them. So acting is you'll act on something if you trust it. If you don't, you won't. But by talking about this and setting yourself up, like today is going to be a great day, well, that's exciting, And all of a sudden, things start to happen. But at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, shit, I'll tell you why it was great. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to tell you why it's great in the morning. Because if I say, okay, this has to happen, that has to happen, this specific thing has to happen, also by the end of the day, I'm like, shit, I fell short. But at the end of the day, it's like, oh, yeah.
Yep.
This is great. That's why we have happy hour. We get to the happy hour and we discuss our day. But you don't have happy hour in the morning unless you're really a lush.
In that case, you need to turn on a different show.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to find something else. So again, we didn't have too many clips on Emile, but we were able to find different clips and excerpts from his writings, from his books. So those are what we chose to share with you guys today. We wanted to take things directly from Emile's mouth. And so that's kind of what we did here. So we found some different clips, whether they came from, what was it?
A book.
Well, there's two different books. This is the My Method one, but then there was another one that we had that we took excerpts from, and I can't remember the title of it.
It's the self-mastery one?
Yeah, self-mastery. Yeah. So those two are where we took the clips from. Let's dive right in.
All right, here we go.
Before beginning to explain the practical application of autosuggestion and the extremely simple method by which it is possible for everyone to gain complete mastery over his or her physical organism, I must speak of the all-important role of the imagination. Dominance of the imagination over the will. Contrary to the generally accepted theory, the will is not the invincible force it is claimed to be. In fact, whenever imagination and will come into conflict, it is always imagination that triumphs. Try to do something while you are repeating, "I cannot do it," and you will see this truth confirmed. The mere idea of inability to accomplish a thing paralyzes the willpower. Self-mastery is attained when the imagination has been directed and trained to conform with our desires. For although in one sense the imagination is inclined in the subconscious, yet it dominates the latter. And therefore, if we know how to guide it, our subconscious self will take charge of our material being and do its work just as we wish it to be done. Or in other words, exactly in conformity with our conscious suggestions. I cannot too strongly insist that in the practice of autosuggestion the exercise of will must be strictly avoided, except in the initial phase of directing or guiding the imagination on the desired lines. This is absolutely the only manifestation of will necessary or even desirable. Any other voluntary effort is positively harmful in connection with autosuggestion, and will almost certainly have an effect contrary to the one desired. Analyze the so-called strong-willed character of history, Caesar, Napoleon, etc. You will find that they were all men of big imagination. Certain ideas were implanted in their minds, and their tenacious suggestions impelled them into action. This, however, is a digression. Law of converted effort. What I want to drive home for the moment is a law of what my friend Charles Baudon calls converted effort. Suppose a man suffering from insomnia decides to try the effect of autosuggestion. Unless previously warned, he will repeat to himself phrases like, "I want to sleep," "I will sleep," "I am going to sleep," and all the time he will be making desperate efforts to coax sleep. This is fatal. The very fact of exerting effort has converted the latter into a force acting in a sense contrary to the original suggestion, with the result that poor man tosses and turns in his bed in sleepless wretchedness. The imagination should be unhindered. Let the imagination do its work alone, unhindered. Be quite passive. Through mysterious, still unexplained processes, our subconscious self accomplishes marvelous things.
I love that clip.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one to start.
Yeah, because we've learned this over time, and this is, again, don't take mine and Mike's word for it. Experience this, and you probably have experienced it. But when you start to say, like, I want more money, I want more money, I want more money, it means you don't have it. So you're actually coming from a place of lack. Like he mentioned, I want to sleep tonight. It means you're not sleeping. Because if you're actually wealthy and you're sleeping, you don't need to have that as an affirmation. You don't need it as an affirmation. So becoming a little more general, like I live a healthy life or what have you. And the subconscious says, okay, healthy life sleeps better. I am healthy, not I want. So you state it from the place in which we're in. And we hear this throughout time. And, Emile was actually one of the first people to bring it back into the Western culture's awareness. Again, it's been around forever, but him writing the books and doing his talks early in the 20th century brought this to light. And now here we are at a moment in time where we know it, but there's so much coming at us. I was going to say earlier when you talked about the the Washington Post.
Yeah.
I wonder if the person who was writing the articles knew the irony of their autosuggestion onto the world in doom and gloom, being they write the news.
Yeah.
Like, even though they understood it, but yet when they put something out talking about the doom and gloom of the world, they're autosuggesting to everybody that reads it, creating this great conflict between good and evil, so to speak. And I thought that was interesting because, like, obviously they wrote the article based on this guy who actually says whatever you think and say will permeate throughout your life and you'll experience that. Where the news is, they tend not to write happy pieces.
Well, this is why advertising dollars are millions. You know, why do Super Bowl commercials cost millions and millions of dollars? Why do these big tech, companies, et cetera, whoever has your attention is in control. And that's what we need to remind ourselves. And that's why, there's this big push online, whose attention can we hold? Once we have that person's attention, then we structure the narrative. And from there, that's what people buy into. And Emile talks about this the entire time. He throughout all of his texts, he refers to the human being very similar to that of sheep. We just move in the direction that others go, and we say, oh, this is the way. This is exactly what's going on every single day with politics, policy, jobs, your position at work, etc. Oh, this is my role. This is what I do. We are auto-suggesting every aspect of our life on a daily basis. I'm not good enough for that, or this is enough for me, or I don't deserve that. All of these are auto-suggestions. All of these are ideas that we buy into. And all of them is, like in this last clip, all of them are our imagination. What are we imagining? Because that will take stronghold. It doesn't matter the will. In fact, the will's going to, the more we try, just like Frank and I talked about the Chinese finger trap in last episode, the more we try, the more we struggle, the more we strive, that pushes whatever we're working towards further and further away from us. And this is, again, why this hustle culture and the things we're taught, get out there, work hard, are false. This was really hard for me to learn because I grew up in a family. You got to work hard, you got to strive, all this type of stuff. It's coming from a place of lack, and it's a very conditioned set of thoughts or way of thinking, and it holds us back from our true power.
Yeah, and how this came about over time, I think a lot of people had seen very successful people in very different various parts of their life, and instead of like asking the question like how did they feel or what was going through their head, so to speak, they just mimicked what they were doing, and that becomes hard. Because if I'm doing something and getting great results, it's how I feel about it, not the actual thing I'm doing, is giving me the result. So there's a correlation with the thing, and that's kind of what he hit home about, Emile. It's about the imagination. So when I imagine something, I can imagine a hellish life, or I can imagine a brilliant life. And that's why we live on this seemingly roller coaster type of world where, like, if this condition, this circumstance happens, because I was told this through autosuggestion, it's good. But if this happens, another autosuggestion came in, this is bad. So all of a sudden, now you're like trying to outwardly, with will, trying to change the outside world rather than changing the subject on how you think about the outside world, where the true work is done. Yeah.
See, I don't know how to stress this enough, but like autosuggestion, the word, like, I feel like that isn't given enough like credit that it deserves. And what I mean by that is, from the moment you are born, you are told what culture you're from. You're given a religion. You're given a name. You're given, all of these different ideas. These are auto-suggestions about who and what you are. And so a lot of us are walking around not knowing our true self, not knowing thyself, the most important thing you can. We're carrying these concepts that were handed to us from birth that were just auto-suggestions. And autosuggestion, it sounds like, oh yeah, that's just a little thing, but it's like the impact of autosuggestion is the reason you're at where you're at right now, working the job you're working right now, in the relationship you are right now. Autosuggestion is everywhere. It is what's creating this experience. Yeah. In this last clip, you said imagination. The will is not the invincible force. And I thought that was very powerful because it talks about how the exercise of will must be avoided. He says that. The exercise of will must be avoided. And he says the voluntary effort is harmful and contrary to what we want. And I know this sounds in complete opposite or contradiction of what we've been taught growing up, but this is the truth.
Well, it is a paradox.
Yeah, it
by
is.
no means, yeah.
And that's where a lot of people get hung up. It's like, what do you mean? I've got to constantly focus on, I've got to do this. And it's like, whoa. You're that will you're exercising is pushing what you want further and further away.
Yeah. And if you start with the idea of your imagination, so in every way, in every day, my life gets better and better. Well, you automatically know what that looks like, in your mind. Okay. Now, when you permeate off that imagination, what the imagination grants you is a feeling. So hold on to that feeling and drop all insistence on the outcome. And at the end of the day, you'll see the outcome. But don't even look for it, because when you have insistence on how it's going to look, you actually are constantly looking at the ground for something when the very thing that you want flew overhead and just moved on. So just keep your eyes wide open, be very conscious, and have complete utter faith that when you actually say this in every day, in every way, or in every way, in every day, my life gets better and better, or greater and greater, however you want to put it, that will generate a feeling. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the day, you're like, wow, this is wild. Because our imagination is the greatest gift that we have, not our will.
Yeah.
The will can fight it. Because, hey, I can only will something that I know. But my imagination, like, I'll think of something. This is the cool thing is I'll think of something. Like, okay, I want to experience this. And sometimes that thing will show up. But most of the time, something way beyond the point of even my imagination shows up that was even greater. And that's what I love about it, because the human mind is thinking at the basement of your imagination, where your higher mind is so far beyond that. So, but if I held on to, I have to have this specific thing, I shut out the thing that could have been even greater of an experience in the moment in which it could have came. But hey, we all do that, so it's not a big deal. The next moment you have, it never ends. So these concepts and ideas aren't for the 20-something-year-olds or the 30-something-year-olds. You could be 99 years old, still using autosuggestion. Actually, you will, because you wake up every day.
Mm-hmm. It's becoming aware. Yeah, but it's becoming aware, of that talking voice that we call ourselves that's in our head, that self-talk.
Yeah.
And what are you suggesting with that self-talk?
Now, I think like when you read literature like his or other people, it sparks something. You get excited. In that moment of getting excited, it's letting you know this is truth at some level. How does this truth apply to you? Well, that's for you. That's for you to examine. Don't take anybody's word for it, because it sounds good. But a lot of people just sit back and they try to do something, what have you, and it doesn't work. But when you actually just let it go and permeate, and every day you get into this state of feeling, life is amazing. It really is. When you're not, it's not amazing. Well, that leads me to believe that when I'm not feeling good, things don't turn out well. I'm like, well, that becomes my alarm system, if you will, my protection. Just like if I was driving my car and I started swerving or veering over to the right and there was another vehicle next to me, my car beeps. I like the fact that my car beeps so I don't hit the other car. So when that beeps, I just slightly move over into the left lane or back into the left. And if I maintain consciousness and drive straight and don't swerve, that beeping will never happen. So that beeping is a negative response or a negative emotion. So negative emotions are keeping you on track. But if you turn out or shut off that negative emotion, like drown it out some way, medication,
alcohol.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever. It's almost like in your car. If you had that, there's a way to disengage it, and also you wonder why your car rolled over in the ditch, and because I turned that emotion off. I dulled that emotion, what was deemed to be a negative emotion, rather than allowing it to work. So your subconscious will let you know if you're moving in the wrong direction by this doesn't feel good. Well, just go the other way. Just slightly go in the other direction, and all of a sudden you start to feel better. And then all of a sudden, when you do this, that feeling better becomes your natural state, your baseline, if you will. And then from there, it just expands in that direction. So using and understanding autosuggestion can help you do that. Also, other ways, utilizing certain types of music can help. If you're feeling bad, how do I quickly turn this around? Well, turn a piece of music on that you like. And then once you notice your emotions shifting, that's when you realize, well, it isn't the music, although there's a correlation with the music. I've risen to another state, and now when you start to auto-suggest these statements, they have more grip on you. So, yeah, and that's the cool thing. And because there's other people, like a lot of people using auto-suggestion stuff. There's a brain tap. No, mind tap, I think. Is it brain tap?
No, it's brain tap.
Brain tap.
The thing you were showing me?
Yeah, I use brain tap, and I like it. And there's music involved in it. Dr. Patrick Porter came out with this. And there's other stuff out there. There's Mind Valley. Joe Dispenza has great meditations. Anyone that's had great meditations, when you listen to them and they're speaking, that's autosuggestion. They tend to have music behind it. The music helps you get into more of a theta state where you're more suggested. And if you're doing that, just, you obviously trust someone like a Joe Dispenza or, anyone you listen to. Hopefully you trust them. You don't want to be listening to Charlie Manson stuff.
Yeah, right.
Autosuggestion.
Worst autosuggestion ever.
Well, that's how cults start, actually. Through autosuggestion, people buy into it.
But that's what I was getting at with the whole autosuggestion thing. I want people to realize, holy shit, because that was a big aha moment for me.
Yeah.
Was, oh my God, everything for me, is in autosuggestion. I'm playing. That's the whole aha. I'm responsible for everything I'm experiencing moment that you have when you wake up, because you no longer point the finger. It doesn't matter what's happening in the outside world. You understand that, how I talk to myself, what I focus on, what I share, what I believe, what I feel, that's what I experience. This is why, all of the greats told us, be the change you want to see in the world, because at the end of the day, the only way to experience love is to love. There's nothing you have to do to deserve it or qualify or obtain something. You just simply be it. And then the outside world begins to conform. And we're taught completely opposite to that. We're taught that there's this absolute world outside of us that's very physical and can't be malleable, and that's incorrect. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Quantum physics has proven this. We know this. In fact, there is no matter. Everything is vibration. It's all, wave of different infinite possibilities, etc. My girlfriend Kayla, she always talks about, this autosuggestion stuff, in the sense that the more if you're constantly affirming about something, I need to do this, or I will do this, I will do that, you are putting force against what you want, the outcome that is desired. And that's exactly what, Emile Coue is saying here, which is, he gave the example of the gentleman falling asleep, constantly telling himself, I will sleep, I will this, etc. That is forceful. And if you were in that state, if you were sleeping comfortably, of course you wouldn't be saying that to yourself. Frank's example, the wealthy don't wake up and say, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire. They just are. And so you get into that state of you just are, and that's when you begin to attract.
Yeah, and that's why going with these, like if you look at that statement, in every day, in every way, it's very general. Mm-hmm. He's not specifically saying, okay, I have to have this,
because
I have to
our
have
subconscious
that.
knows.
Yeah, your subconscious will know exactly what you need in the moment which you need it. No sooner, no later will you get it. but we can interfere. Again, the bus always comes at 2:05, but if you're not at the bus stop, you're not getting on the bus. It will always show up. And then there'll be another one at 3:05 and so on and so forth. But if you don't go to the bus stop, don't expect to get on the bus. You have to get to the level or the frequency to match the experience. And going very general, but by saying these phrases such as, that one, it generates something. But if you try to get too specific, you're narrowing the field in which you're trying to experience. I'm like, it doesn't work that way. And then beyond that point, you start to see experiences beyond you. Because what is this all about? Think about Christmas. The identification of Christmas is asking for something and being shocked that it came, especially little kids, right? Mm-hmm. They wrote this down. They wrote a list, and then they probably wrote it in early December, maybe late November. It depends how punctually. I did like the day before. I'm like, hey, my dad's like, sorry, kid. Santa's not going to get that. I'm like,
sorry, kid.
Next year you should do it earlier.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But the whole month you're excited about this concept of idea, and you go, those who are Christian celebrate Christmas. The idea of waking up in the morning on Christmas morning on the 25th and looking under the tree and seeing these gifts wrapped, and then opening up. It's the surprise, and sometimes it's more than you expected. But if you had too much of a suggestion, you get the socks, you're kind of pissed off, right? But then you find yourself in gym class a week later, and you're like, thank God Mom bought me socks. Oh, sorry, Santa. Mm-hmm. So this has always been around through how we imagine things. We get excited about the unknown, not the known. That gets boring, becomes really boring. So we're trying to force or will things into it because we had an experience years ago before will. We just had an experience. It was great. Now I'm trying to will that experience into my day-to-day life. And I'm like, that's why it's not working. Mm-hmm. The first time you climbed a tree, it wasn't by will. It was by getting to a state, and it was the next byproduct, or I should say it was a result of your exhilaration. So it just occurred to you at that moment to climb a tree spontaneously. And then you notice the exhilaration, you tied it to the tree, so now you're forever trying to will trees into your life. And this is why life gets boring. You're willing something that you already know. That's not fun. But opening up, getting very general, and then watch what happens. Like, wow, this is where the excitement of life comes in. It's a surprise every day. Stepping to known is the way we were designed to do. But people are trying to construct, through will, this perfect world. Like the Stepford Wives or whatever movie you want to tie it to, and you realize, wow, this is crazy shit. Well, we're looking at Stepford Wives say this is crazy shit. I'm like, this is how we live. Yeah. You get in your car, you go to work, you say hi to this person, that person, get there, and you can't wait for Friday, so you don't have to do this shit. But then, a couple years into it, Friday is no longer fun, and then Saturday, okay, then Sunday, damn it, I gotta go back to work. Mm-hmm. You're a Stepford wife. Yeah. You're in that circle.
Yep.
But once you relieve yourself and free yourself from that, it doesn't mean you don't go to work every day. It doesn't mean any of that. Things can change. It's your attitude towards how you do it. And I had to work, and well, something different happens every day at work, even though I may seemingly go to the same place, which technically isn't really the same place, because we live in a very interesting universe. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. Let's dive into our second clip.
All right, here we go.
1. When the will and the imagination are antagonistic, it is always the imagination which wins, without any exception. 2. In the conflict between the will and the imagination, the force of the imagination is in direct ratio to the square of the will. 3. When the will and the imagination are in agreement, one does not add to the other, but one is multiplied by the other. And 4. The imagination can be directed. The expressions in direct ratio to the square of the will and is multiplied by are not rigorously exact. They are simply illustrations destined to make my meaning clear. After what has just been said, it would seem that nobody ought to be ill. That is quite true. Every illness, whatever it may be, can yield to autosuggestion. Daring and unlikely as my statement may seem, I do not say does always yield, but can yield, which is a different thing. But in order to lead people to practice conscious autosuggestion, they must be taught how, just as they are taught to read or write or play a piano. Autosuggestion is, as I said above, an instrument that we possess at birth, and with which we play unconsciously all our life, as a baby plays with its rattle. It is, however, a dangerous instrument. It can wound or even kill you if you handle it with imprudent and unconsciously. It can, on the contrary, save your life when you know how to employ it consciously. One can say of it, as Aesop said of the tongue, it is at the same time the best and the worst thing in the world.
I like that clip. It's really good.
Yeah, it kind of breaks it down, for you.
Yeah, it reminded me of something with the will. I've I told you I had a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've been going to this doctor. This guy's great, doctor. Call him Dr. P, but it's John Poorman, Dr. John Poorman, and he gets into energy type medicine. He uses different instruments to heal and break up the body without actually manipulating it. Again, not will, but allowing it to work. Mm-hmm. And so, I've been to like 4 times, and it's like the first time we were like best friends. It was very interesting, yeah. And so I remember last week I was in agony, right? And I didn't tell him. And I go in, and his daughter's working on me, and I'm like, yeah, man, it was hurt. Like I could feel it at night. I couldn't, couldn't sleep. It kept waking me up. And he comes over, and I'm laying down. She's using this machine on me, and she tells him, he's like, well, why didn't you text me, dude? We love you here. And he goes, tighten up your stomach. And I'm like, why? And he punches me in the stomach. Dude, you got to tell me. And why I don't want to tell, which is a problem too, or it's because I don't want to affirm that my shoulder's hurting.
Yeah.
But yet I wasn't doing the inside work either. So for women out there wondering why your man doesn't go to the doctor is they don't want to affirm they're sick. But yet they also have to believe they're not sick in order to really truly affirm it. So there is a paradox in that, and that becomes problematic. So if you truly believe you weren't sick, the symptoms would go away. And I started talking to him about that, and we were laughing about it. And he goes, yeah, it's true. So what's going on? And I'm like, I think I have to hold the world up in my world.
Yeah.
And when you let go of that, all of a sudden the pain starts dissipating. Just by talking to him, all of a sudden the pain started going away. And that's why if I had probably texted him, he would have probably texted me back something in that form, like, okay, do this stretch. And all of a sudden, because I'm doing something, I'm dropping the fact that I'm helpless. And even though the stretch was somewhat of a permission slip, it would have worked. So that's kind of why we do this, because we don't want to affirm it, but at the same time, we can't remain in the same state and expect something to change. So sometimes outwardly talking about it, even if it's problematic, will help, because somebody will come along and change their perspective. So for all the women out there understanding men, get them to do it. Or you'll see the change. But that was the one thing that's hearing this. That's exactly what happened to me last week.
No, and I love that, and I'm glad you tied in at the end. I'm holding up the world. Everything we're experiencing, whether that's some ache, pain, whatever, it is an outward manifestation of something we're feeling.
Yeah.
So hearing you talk about that is great, because I tied that story together. Like, I'm feeling the weight of the world. You got a family, you got a son, you got a wife, you got, you own a business, etc. Like, we all are going through this in some way. And it's weird because we all think it's just us. I'm the only person who does not feel deserving. I'm the only person that does not feel worthy. No, you're not. In fact, we're all sharing this hive mind, and we're all experiencing that same bullshit in our own different way. Whether that's, through work, relationship, family, whatever. That's again, why I was so taken by Buddhism when I first, started learning these concepts. They were the first person to say, hey, life is suffering. Our whole lives, we're kind of told that, we're supposed to, run from suffering, or that we're not supposed to suffer. No, like Frank was talking about, we need suffering to understand how to use this instrument and be like, oh, suffering shows me I'm not on the path. Suffering shows me that, there is a way out of this. I can let go. We need to start using this instrument for what it is, which is it's here as like a temperature check.
Yeah.
Does this feel good? Does this feel bad? Does this bring joy? Does this bring pain?
Yeah, and the idea and concept of suffering, I like what you just said, is not understanding the instrument.
Yeah.
So like,
Well, we're never taught the instrument.
yeah,
We're taught we are the instrument.
Yeah. So if I don't understand where the shoulder pain's coming from, I'm going to suffer.
Yeah.
But if I understand, okay, it was a culmination of thoughts which led me to do some, working out, and I could there's different correlations to why it happened. But understanding at a deeper level where it came from, I don't suffer. Does the pain go away automatically? No, no, the pain's still there, but I don't suffer from the pain. Pain is just a sensation that drives me to one part of my body. But and I've learned this even, like I'll wake up some nights at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and years ago I'm like, shit, I'm not going to get adequate sleep. Now when I wake up, I don't even question it. I'm like, I don't know why I'm up now. I do a bunch of various types of things, and I'll go do them, and maybe I'll fall back asleep, maybe I won't. But I always make it through the day without suffering, unless I get into the autosuggestion in my head. It's like, you don't understand. It's like the only time I tell Karen I didn't get good sleep last night is when she wants me to do something I don't want to do.
That's so funny.
No, it is funny because she doesn't care.
Because she doesn't care.
Yes,
Hell
what
yeah,
happens?
Karen.
Like I'm sitting there, like I'm actually fine. I woke up one day. I woke up like 1:45 and didn't go back to bed. Like, hey, let's do some gardening today. I'm like, oh shit, honey, I woke up at 1. I've been up since 1.
I got up way too early.
Yeah. She's like, well, maybe if we go out in the garden, you'll afterwards you fall asleep and take a nap. I'm like, no, that's not going to work for me. Like, yeah, she knows these concepts too well, and she's funny because she doesn't come directly at them with me.
Of course,
she goes around, and I know what she's doing. And I'm like, son of a
Gotcha.
So I can't. I can't get
all
away
you
with
can
it.
do is laugh.
Yeah, that's why I'm with her. Yeah, she doesn't let me off the hook.
Yeah,
you poor thing never came out of her mouth.
Yep.
Oh my God, I feel so sorry. You just sit there, let me do all the work today. It's never worked.
I like your style, Karen.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's funny.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, but it is, and I realize, okay, what is going on? I'm like, am I tired, or am I complaining? Or should I have gotten more sleep? These concepts are actually what's making me tired. It really is. Because I've functioned plenty of times on 3 hours of sleep. I don't try to only have 3 hours of sleep. I allow my body to get what it needs. Some days I get 8, some days I get 5. I just allow it. When I start complaining, I get tired. I could have got 8 hours of sleep and complain and be tired.
But that's exactly it. We wake up and depending on what we say we feel, we're surprised by, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted today.
Yes, the actual act, what we're talking about, the actual act or the concept of suffering makes whatever pain you have worse. But when I take suffering out of it, okay, it's just pain. It dulls, and all of a sudden the body knows what to do to take care of it. So suffering is misunderstanding what's actually happening. People think it's not supposed to rain. I'm like, yes, it needs to rain, but I don't want it to rain. Well, therefore, you're going to suffer. So stop trying to will the world in which you see. Just get into a frame of mind where no matter what happens, is going to be a surprise and a gift.
And working in your favor.
Oh, yeah, always, because a gift and a surprise is always in your favor. That's what we want.
But that's the thing. Like, a lot of us think if it's not shaking out a certain way, or if it's not lining up with the way you're seeing it in your head, that it's not working. And there are infinite ways to achieve any goal or desire that you have. And that's what you have to let go of, is it working out a specific way.
And how do you know it's supposed to work out a specific way? Like, how do you really know that?
Oh,
you either experienced it.
It's a limited way of thinking.
Yeah, you either experienced it, which you already went through it. So it's like, eating the same bowl of cereal twice isn't going to happen. Or you watch somebody else do it, but you don't know the whole subjective understanding of what they went through when they did that. So you're trying to think, okay, that person looks happy, and so if I get and have what they have, I will be happy. I'm like, not quite. It's not how it works, because that person had to move on even from the thing they obtained.
And we've already seen this play out for the last 40, 50 years. We know that doesn't work.
No.
More money, more fame, more power, more that. We know for a fact this does not work. You can look at the different actors and stars and people we grew up saying, oh, they've got this perfect life.
Yeah, if you're looking out from the outside in, if you go from inside out, you can have billions of dollars and be at peace. I'm not saying, it's not about. That's why right now what you see, like years ago when you had watched like, what was that, Robin Leach, Lifestyles of Rich and Famous.
Oh yeah.
When he featured them, you just see them in this red carpet-esque type way. You just see them, how when you turn on like Instagram, you see people in their best. Once in a while someone will put on Instagram, we're like, I'm not doing good today. I'm like, oh. But you see them in their best, but you don't see how everything's played out. So then you think, okay, if I have these things, I will be happy. If I look this way, I'll be happy. And no, because now you focus on the outside world, rather than the suggestive world, the subjective world. You're looking at the objective world and trying to get that. But when you go within and you start to feel good, maybe you'll end up with that mansion. You'll look like that. Who knows? But that just becomes the byproduct of the feeling of the state. So we're not by any means saying get rid of stuff, because you don't need to get rid of stuff. Why? It's always fleeting anyway. Yeah. You can't hold on to it. Even if you had that Ferrari after, I don't know how long you hold on to Ferrari for these days, right?
Yeah.
5 years maybe? You got to get a new one. Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
But a Toyota, you could hold on for a lot longer.
Go get your Toyota.
No, it is funny because like you see, unless you're nostalgic, but you see like a really nice sports car from like 10 years ago, it looks outdated. Mm-hmm. But a Toyota truck is still a truck, dude. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, oh. But anyway, yeah.
Well, we still have a third clip. I said we throw that on.
All right, here you go.
I wish to say how glad I was to come into personal contact with the great American public on their own side of the Atlantic, and at the same time I could not help feeling just a little embarrassed. I had an idea that people of that continent expected from me some wonderful revelation, bordering on the miraculous, whereas in reality the message I have to give is so simple that many are tempted at first to consider it almost insignificant. Let me say right here, however, that simple as my message may be, it will teach those who consent to hear it, and to give fair thought a key to permanent physical and moral well-being, which can never be lost. Autosuggestion disconcerting in its simplicity. To the uninitiated, autosuggestion or self-mastery is likely to appear disconcerting in its simplicity. But does not every discovery, every invention seem simple and ordinary once it has become vulgarized and the details or mechanism of it known to the man in the street? Not that I am claiming autosuggestion as my discovery, far from it. Autosuggestion is as old as the hills, only we had forgotten to practice it, and so we needed to learn it all over again. Think of all the forces of the universe ready to serve us, yet centuries elapsed before man penetrated their secret and discovered the means of utilizing them. It is the same in the domain of thought and mind. We have at our service forces of transcendent value, of which we are neither completely ignorant or else only vaguely conscious. Power of autosuggestion known in the Middle Ages. The power of thought, of idea, is incommensurable, is immeasurable. The world is dominated by thought. The human being individually is also entirely governed by his own thoughts, good or bad. The powerful action of the mind over the body, which explains the effects of suggestion, was well known to the great thinkers of the Middle Ages, whose vigorous intelligence embraced the sum of human knowledge. Every idea conceived by the mind, says St. Thomas, is an order which the organism obeys. It can also, he adds, engender a disease or cure it. The efficacy of autosuggestion could not be more plainly stated. Pythagoras and Aristotle taught autosuggestion. We know indeed that the whole human organism is governed by the nervous system, the center of which is the brain, the seat of thought. In other words, the brain or mind controls every cell, every organ, every function of the body. That being so, is it not clear that by means of thought we are the absolute masters of our physical organism, and that, as the ancients showed centuries ago, thought or suggestion can and does produce disease or cure it? Pythagoras taught the principles of autosuggestion to his disciples. He wrote, God the Father, deliver them from their suffering, and show them what supernatural power is at their call. Even more definite is the doctrine of Aristotle, which taught that a vivid imagination compels the body to obey it, for it is a natural principle of movement. Imagination, indeed, governs all the forces of sensibility, while the latter in its turn controls the beating of the heart, and through it sets in motion all vital functions. Thus the entire organism may be rapidly modified. Nevertheless, however, vivid imagination, it cannot change the form of a hand or a foot or any other member. I have particular satisfaction in recalling this element of Aristotle's teaching, because it contains two of the most important, nay, essential principles of my own method of autosuggestion.
Well said. You know what I find interesting? Where Aristotle, one of his pupils was Alexander the Great.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, so he had a great imagination, but at the same time, he forced will onto the world and tried to conquer the whole world for purposes of his own, thinking it would be a better place if everyone was the same. And his curiosity of different cultures as well. But when you slide into that part of will, you actually exnay or don't enjoy the actual process of autosuggestion, which I don't know, I would call that ironic, but maybe he just didn't pay attention to Aristotle as much as he should have. But then again, Alexander the Great was a very interesting person, at least.
Good story for history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean that is good.
Yeah, but we all do that too. So maybe it's a great example of Alexander the Great to show, obviously his great imagination led him into this place, but then the will part of it where it doesn't work, where it creates tyranny and stuff like that. So showing both sides, it can help us discern which way I should go. So that is the historical understanding of it, I believe. Yeah, like sometimes
That
watching
makes
things
some
that don't work is like, okay, and then what was about that? It was the will part.
I thought it was very cool how he mentioned, I believe he said it was Pythagoras, I'm not sure, it might have been Aristotle, but he said, what supernatural power is at their call? When he was talking about, I don't know if that's like an excerpt from, like a prayer, but he was saying it was essentially something that he would exclaim. But what supernatural power is at their call? Essentially letting every single one of us know that we have the ability, we have a superpower at our call, and that is through autosuggestion. One of my favorite, so the other day, Kayla was coloring with her daughter, and she had these like 2 coloring books, and they're like these mandalas with different phrases. And one of the phrases was, it's a quote from the Bible, but it's about like how you cannot serve 2 masters, And I thought, oh my God, when I saw that, she sent that to me, I was like, this is so powerful, because we have the ability to choose every single day. What master are we going to serve? That of, what we call reality, the world of Caesar, the 3D, whatever you want to call it, this outside, that has yet to conform? Or are we going to know that what we're manifesting, what we're creating is happening? Are we going to know that, we're walking into the best days of our life or the best experience? We're choosing what master we want to serve, whether that be the lower, echelon of us, the lower vibratory, sensations of pain, suffering, stress, etc. Or are we going to serve peace? Are we going to serve wholeness? Are we going to serve knowing? Are we going to serve confidence?
Yeah. And if you notice all the sayings, like from Pythagoras even to Aristotle and even Emile, they're general. They're not specific, and that's the key there. Like when you put something, like we are all holy, we are all powerful. Well, that's not specific. It's very general. But there's something it does. It generates us to a higher level to where we start to experience somewhat we call specific things. But we didn't set it that way. But once you start using affirmations or autosuggestion very specifically, you're going to be looking for that specific thing, and that kind of breaks things down. Yeah. So very generalizations, that's all we need, and the subconscious will know exactly, or the higher mind, however you want to look at it, will know exactly how to get there.
How to bring us
to where we know. That's kind of like a GPS, right? We want to go experience something, but we don't know how to get there. We'll just calculate in the experience, the feeling. Okay, here's the coordinates. And then all of a sudden you get in your vehicle and you start driving, and The GPS will give you one turn at a time. And if you fully trust it, you don't question it. And it says make it right, you make it right. Go 2 miles and then make a left, you make a left. Next thing you know, you're coming upon this experience that is a brand new. It's new. Because, hey, if it wasn't new, you would have needed the guidance system to get you there because you've been there. But when you actually go on a travel somewhere you've never experienced, it will set you forth how to get there. And that's the surprise. And you experience it. Because once you're there, then, okay, what else am I going to do? It's something new. Something else has to be born out of that. And that's a continuous, constant thing. But if you're living a hell of a life suffering, you're going to get more, birth of suffering. And it's like, this is why life can be very dreadful. I'm like, oh my God, every freaking day my life sucks. Well, that's an autosuggestion right there, people. And then every day you're going to experience it, unless you get distracted, hey, you're not going to believe it. I had a good day today.
But honestly, that's where 90% of the world is the, oh man, it's Monday, heading back to work. Work sucks. My boss, doesn't appreciate me. My husband or my wife doesn't, care about me. They just care about themselves. My kids are brats. All this shit, guys, is auto-suggestion. Yeah. And it's all something you're buying into. If you don't like the story, change the narrative. We are storytellers. We are narrating our experience. And that is what autosuggestion is. Your experience in life, your experience in this reality is simply autosuggestion. It is what you're focused on. It is what you're repeating to yourself. Whatever you're pushing really hard, or pushing on extremely hard, you're pushing away from you. It's these concepts that allow us to learn how to use this instrument, to use this mind, and experience, all of this unconditional love and beauty that is all around us at all times. It's never left you. In this very moment, every time your heart beats is a different moment. You don't have to hold on to this old story. No.
And obviously, the reason Mike and I do the show called Perspective Shift, and there's a multitude of other programs out there and other podcasts that do this, because all of our autosuggestion is in the positive realm. Emile might resonate with you or might not, somebody else that we talk about. So we like to try to set a channel up where anything you listen to is resonant. So anyone out there that's kind of new to these concepts, find something that excites you and listen to it day in and day out. Yeah, I guess you go in also to do self-talk, but sometimes, like listening to somebody over and over, all of a sudden you'll start to get it, and that will become all of a sudden your natural byproduct of waking up in the morning will be more positive. So again, if you're watching the news, you're going to fall into that state. If you're listening to podcasts like ours and other great ones out there as well, like I do, all of a sudden they'll keep you in this state of keep moving in that direction. And then life just becomes amazing. I accidentally go off to the side of the road. But years ago, I drove on the side of the road and I accidentally made it into the middle lane. And now I reversed that. And for me, it was a slow walk. It really was. It was day in and day out. For some people, it could be like that instant. I've heard of stories like that. And, I have to take their word for it. I don't really hang out with these people. But for me, it was like my default was negative. And when I mean negative, it was experiences I didn't want to have. All right. So for somebody else, say my positive, what I was going through. But all of a sudden I started reading, listening to more and more. And then all of a sudden my default became experiences in the direction in which made me joyful. And then occasionally I get pulled out and drift over. But then when I do that, now I go back to the center lane. That's where I normally drive, so to speak. But for me, it became inundating myself with books, people, surrounding myself. Now, the cool thing is I could go anywhere and talk to anyone and not worry about if they're going to take me down. I don't do that. I hold my ground. So it is getting to this place of stepping out into the world no matter what's happening, and that's where my excitement comes from. Just like a Navy SEAL wants to be dropped off in the middle of nowhere, him and 5 of his other buddies, and they're on a mission that seems to be impossible, but that's what they get their thrill from. And they're like, they need to know very little, and all of a sudden, boom, it happens. There's something amazing about that, but they maintain this status of being calm, being professional, being concise, and they go through, get the result, come back, the helicopter comes, picks them up, and poof, they're gone. That's how we want to live life. We don't want to live life in a palace where we're or I should say, we don't want to live life in a castle where we're protected by walls. We want to live in a life in a palace where we're inviting everybody in, everyone's open to come in. So the party is expanding as come in, and whoever comes into your palace, you accept. So there's a different. But in the beginning, hey, if you're not there, yeah, live in the castle. You need that. But as time goes on, you slowly transform and start to become this. Then you're prepared to step out into the world, and amazing things happen, and you can deal with almost everything. And that's where the fun is. Like, oh my God, someone gave me the finger the other day. I told you that story, right?
Yeah.
That was funny as hell. And at first I'm like, why is this guy giving me the finger? Did I tell you? I didn't tell you this part. And I'm like, then I started laughing. And it was funny because then I told this to a client of mine, and she's like, well, how do you know his finger wasn't broken? I'm like, I never thought of that. Maybe he had a broken finger, but then I'm like, why was he holding it in front of the window? She's like, well, maybe he had to keep the blood flow going. I'm like,
God.
yeah. And it's funny because that's something I would do. And I just started laughing. But I'm just driving along, and this guy's like, he looked at me, but then he turned away, and his middle finger with something on it was clearly, I'm like, why is this dude giving me the middle finger?
Maybe he did break it.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just weird, but like I didn't even consider that. But then I found it to be funny. I'm like, this dude's giving me the finger for no reason. And at first I'm like, what the hell? Like, did I cut them off or something? But I'm like, no, I didn't cut them off. But then my client's like, well, maybe it was broken. I'm like, oh shit. It's like a Seinfeld episode. I never
exactly
realized.
A whole new perspective.
Yeah, a whole new perspective. And I started laughing about it. And that's kind of where the fun is. I don't want to live in a world where no one's giving me the finger. I just want to live I want to live in my world where someone giving me the finger makes me laugh. Not like get upset and do that stuff. So yeah, because it's very difficult to go out into the world where no one's going to give you the finger.
Very difficult.
Because everyone's got fingers.
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Honestly, I love this episode, going over all this different content about Emile Coue or Emile Coue, however you want to say it. At the end of the day, it was such a great reminder for me personally, just the power of self-talk, the power of autosuggestion, where our power lies, how we give it away on a daily basis when we sit down in front of our TVs and we've got 4 or 5 news stations telling us how to feel or think. Same thing with the
dramas, the TV shows.
The TV show,
if you're
just
watching
where
Breaking
everything's
Bad,
gearing towards.
If you're watching Breaking Bad, that could lead you down a dark road. But so now I want to clear this. Like, if you could get into a state and watch Breaking Bad for the amazing acting, the writing, but not get pulled by it, that's the essence of what we want.
Absolutely.
We don't want to take these shows off the air. We don't want to stop advertising because that doesn't work. That's where fascism comes in. Stop doing that so I don't have to look at it. I'm like, no. Why are you looking at it?
Correct.
There's so many other things to look at. You don't need turn the channel. But when you get to the point where you can watch Breaking Bad and still whistle Dixie, I don't know if that was appropriate to say.
You can say that.
But that's kind of where you want to be. You want to be that steadfast person that can deal with anything and not be removed from where they are because the outside world is trying to get their attention. Yeah. That is the essence of what I strive for. Or I shouldn't say strive, but the essence where I lie. And sometimes I get caught up by the guy giving me the finger.
That's life, man.
Yeah, it is.
But
that's funny.
That's the whole we course correct from there.
Yeah.
Those things pop up, and we're like, hey, I didn't like that. All right, well, I didn't like that. What did I like about that?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
And we move forward.
Why did that upset me? Because there was a story around it.
Well, the things that upset us are often our greatest teachers.
Yeah, well, because you have to examine it. So you say, why does that upset me?
or why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
Or why do I believe that this is how this will be, or this will turn out?
Yeah.
That's the introspective ways that you start to take your power back, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So
Take your power back.
yeah, just remember your inner voice is your daily autosuggestion. So mind it.
Yeah.
You know, cultivate it. And
Be aware of it.
Yeah, be aware of it. And then, if it has a negative thing, so what? Laugh at it. And then, noticing it's bad is cultivating your mind. Notice most people don't notice the self-talk. Like when I noticed that something upset me, it upset me automatically. Then I'm like, well, wait a minute. So once I noticed it, the upsetness diminished, the suffering diminished. And then I'm like, well, then I start laughing. Now the suffering is completely gone. Now I have a funny story to tell people. So maybe this shit keeps happening to me because I like to tell funny stories.
All for the story.
Karen's like, I could do enough with your stories. Just act normal, for the love of God,
Honestly, this was a great episode. I love the content that we were able to find. There is not much online, guys. So my suggestion would be get the books.
Yeah, get the books, or obviously the audiobooks are on YouTube for free.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, so it's really good. And again, I like stuff like this. I'll drive my car and listen to, and even if I'm not paying attention, it still was absorbing it to some level.
Absolutely.
Just like when we were kids, we weren't paying attention, but yet we learned this. Hey, think about it. Like here, I learned the English language without studying.
Yeah.
I just picked it up, and what we call bad habits, I picked them up too. So now, when I'm aware of this autosuggestion, the habits I'm going to pick up are ones I want. But I don't work at it. Just pick it up because you're awake. Right? Everything I worked at, it never seemed to work. But the things I picked up worked out. And then when I pick something up, I might dive into it like, okay, what is it about this that makes this so? And that becomes exciting for me. That's my journey. It might not be everybody else's journey. I like to examine where the excitement comes from. And in the examination is another realm of excitement, but it's not necessary, because this is how life is.
Thank you to our listener who wrote in regards to Emile. This was a great suggestion. I know we got a lot of different people out there, writing into us. We will get to the teachers that you're sharing with us. Frank and I, this gives us content, that we get to research, learn, dive into on a weekly basis. And so it's fun for us on our end because, again, we're all sharing this high mind, this reality. So it's cool seeing who is suggested to us to cover. So please, if you have anybody that you are interested in or you think would be a great fit for Perspective Shift for us to cover or either have on air with us, reach out to us, shoot us an email at perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com. That's the quickest way to reach us, or shoot us a direct message on any of our online platforms.
Yeah. All right. Much love to everyone out there. And remember, know what you're saying to yourself.
We'll see you guys next week.
Peace out.
Thanks.